Welcome to episode 209 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my returning guest this week is Andrew Orr. He's glad you're back on the show. How you doing, Andrew?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Good to be here. Yeah,
glad you are here. And we had lots of good articles you have out there this week, these last few weeks. So we're going to be hitting you up for some of that great content you provided on Apple Insider. So looking forward to that. Jeff Gamet is here. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing all right, and it's great to see you and everyone else. Andrew, thank you for doing the hard work and writing all this stuff, so we don't have to do any research.
Yeah, no, but we always going to get some good info from you. And last but not least, Warren Sklar is here. How you doing, Warren?
I'm back. Believe it or not, I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Good. Glad you're here as well. So, yes, we got a fair amount of news this week. A lot of good stuff. Beta iOS 16 has got lots of stuff that got released. Beta 2. And as I mentioned, got some great topics that we'll be hitting on that Andrew did write some great articles about. Even got a couple apps this week. So let's just dive right into some of the news that we have for this week. First story, Nintendo to end Switch Online app support for older iPhones and iPads. Nintendo Switch owners will soon have to make sure that they're running the latest version of iOS on their iPhones and iPads, at least if they want to continue to have access to the Nintendo Switch Online app. They will no longer support the older iPhone and iPad models in its app. So this was reported about the summer of 2022, which is around here, is going to be here soon. So anything older than probably like a 7, older than a 7 actually, on the iPhone, and probably the older models of the iPad are not going to be able to play games in Nintendo Switch. Warren, do you play any Nintendo Switch games at all?
I do not, and I didn't even know that they had an app. So
there you go.
Does not affect me the least.
I don't think any of us here are gamers, but Jeff, I don't know if you have dabbled in Nintendo Switch at all.
I'm still rocking an original Wii.
Okay. I have one in a storage bin I haven't touched in years.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, if I ever need parts, I know who to call.
Yeah, I know who to call. I've been tempted to sell it for the last few years too. And Andrew, are you a gamer? Do you play Nintendo?
So I do have a Nintendo Switch. And,
you have a Switch? Okay.
I do. So I read this news about their Switch Online, not being able to support older devices. I'm not surprised. It's just this weird system that Nintendo has going on. So The only reason I've ever downloaded the app and my friends have as well is to try to use voice chat. Nintendo doesn't really have this built-in feature for that. And so you have to use this app. Like none of us could even really figure this out, but apparently you need the Switch Online app in order to voice chat. And it may only be in certain games on top of that all. So, yeah.
Well, they have different types of games, right? Because like the Xbox, all my son does is chat. Like he screams. Yeah. I wouldn't call it chat. I just hear screaming from the basement. So he's yelling at somebody. But he does have a Switch, and I don't think they're as multi co-op as some of the others, as far as I know. But that might have changed.
I'd believe that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always felt that what Nintendo was doing with all of this was a half-hearted experiment, because Nintendo is always about buy our hardware.
Right.
But you look at what Warren brought up, Xbox, and look what Microsoft is doing there with cooperative gaming and gaming across multiple platforms, and I think that Nintendo was dabbling in that space with all of this, and have done what I expected them to do eventually, which was just start dropping support for different parts of this. And this is just part of that whole thing. The bigger story to me is they even tried this at all.
Yeah, good point. But this is pretty typical of a lot of game developers, any app developers for that matter, that they put it at the end of the road when you're running. If you're working on a device that's running iOS 12 or iOS 13, it's a little long in the tooth. So just time to move on. Next story here. This Volkswagen CEO questions Apple Car future as Polestar ships OTA CarPlay and promises next-gen adoption. Apple's car ambitions range from replacing your infotainment system with the iPhone to someday selling its own self-driving electric vehicles. But not every auto exec is convinced that Apple's going to ever come across the finish line to shipping its own car. However, meanwhile, more automakers are continuing to adopt Apple's CarPlay, even as the company teases its next grand vision. What we saw at WWDC with this taking over your car software. The Volkswagen CEO Herbert Diaz said that it would be a big effort and is skeptical about it. Of course, it's called Apple's Project Titan, and I think this is going to be something interesting because that dash was pretty amazing, and I would probably have no complaints driving a car having that pretty awesome dash. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah. So the next. This new version of CarPlay is going to be huge. Apple says it's not going to arrive until next year sometime. Right. And I wrote an article about this, trying to explore this. I did find an article from The Verge because they reached out to some of these car manufacturers, including Volkswagen. And I don't remember what Volkswagen said off the top of my head, but there were a couple of them that were, they did, the usual non-committal, we can't comment on this time, but some of them sounded to me like a little bit more optimistic about CarPlay. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. I have high hopes.
Yeah, I just I did have that in our later discussion. We might as well just talk about it now since I brought this other article up. But you wrote a great article talking about the history of the Apple car, quote unquote. But I really think this is just going to be a pretty amazing thing to have. It's like you're immersed in your dashboard. That's really what it is.
Whether it's good or bad is the question, right? From a safety perspective, and trying to have less distractions and not more, obviously. But the thinking in Polestar is going to be an electric car when it's out. It's not out yet, but they're showing off their things, and obviously it's nice for a car company that doesn't exist yet to plan on things easier than cars that are out already, because you have to redo things rather than create what they're doing. But the question is, how autonomous these cars are going to be when you get that kind of infotainment system, because it does. Yeah. I think a lot of people are not like us who aren't geeky and gadgety are looking at that thing like, would you put your parents behind something like that? Yeah. And I'm not sure, right?
Jeff, you must have thoughts.
Well, I have thoughts.
I don't know why you'd assume that. Okay, so I speculated a long time ago as a what if. What if Apple was developing all this whole Project Titan thing as the software for the car, and as opposed to actually making the car? And then we see this whole new CarPlay thing shown off at WWDC. And I'm like, well, that could be some validation for the what if I tossed out, and people were like, no, Apple would never do that. So here's how I'm looking at this now. Apple is doing one of two things with Project Titan. They are currently using other car makers as if they were the rocker. And for people that are old enough, before we got the iPod, Apple partnered with,
Motorola.
Was it Ericsson or Motorola to make the Rocker phone, which had software on it that would let you store iTunes, stuff from your personal iTunes library on the phone. And what Apple learned from that was, okay, we can do something that will work, and we were able to do this at Motorola's expense. Go us.
Well, can I just stop you for a second on that? Because Apple doesn't. If you think about what a car is and what Apple is doing on a car, the Apple CarPlay that they showed off is basically their thing at that point. Everything else is moving tires and we could debate the battery situation, right? Because this is all going to be for the future. If Apple makes a car, it's not going to run on gas. I promise you that. No. So right. So Apple looks at a car. You look at a car. You look at an electric car. You say, how much of this could Apple contribute to this thing I'm looking at? And you can look at the infotainment system, right? Because that's totally CarPlay. You might look at the battery technology because they know a lot about that. But when you start getting into everything else, what is Apple's involvement with that? As far as interior goes, as far as wheels go, and as far as, parts of a car. Whereas the Rocker, that was that's pretty much they had that technology coming. All right. We're developing it as far as the phone, as far as the battery, the glass, things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. All right. So, So Motorola made the hardware, right? Apple made software for the hardware, and so that's how I'm looking at what Apple might be doing now. They let all the other car makers make all the hardware, and they're just making the software for it.
Right.
And if they decide that, or no, if their plan is the Rocker plan, then what they're doing is letting the car makers foot the bill to see how well this works. And if it works well, then all the behind the scenes hardware stuff they have been doing suddenly becomes a car. And or the other thing is Apple could be doing with CarPlay exactly what they're already doing, which is just making the software that other hardware makers, in this case car makers, can use to do their thing. And then they don't need to be involved in, exactly how do you design the wheels and the steering system. They're just tying into all the data that the onboard computers are making and then giving you pretty displays.
Yep. All right. Let's move on to the next story here. Apple has released an iWork update that brings new features to Pages, Numbers, and Keynote with version 12.1. After 2 months, iWork Suite is being updated from 12. So it's just an incremental upgrade, 12.0 to 12.1. Which is on the Mac as well as iPhone and iPad, and you could take advantage of some new features and functions that the iPhone and iPad can handle. With the version 12, it brought modern automation to the Mac apps with shortcuts. Now they're improving with all three of them in Keynote. They're adding subtle movement and visual interest to your presentation with dynamic backgrounds that move continuously as you transition from slide to slide. And I won't go through all the stuff updates here, but Pages also added some updates, including using mail merge to quickly create personal letters. That's a big thing that they really didn't have that before. And Numbers, you don't really talk about much other than you might have some improvements here. What do you think, Jeff? I mean, I think this suite has always been awesome, and who needs Office, really?
Yeah, I really like Apple's iWork Suite, and I love seeing all these new features coming in, especially when we get feature parity, which is what Apple was promising when they initially took features away.
Right.
And I love that they've added in all the collaboration stuff. And you say, who needs Office? And the answer is, well, Actually,
you do. I just kind of threw that out there. Excel, it's hard to beat Excel when it comes to spreadsheets, honestly.
and if you want to have like real collaboration, I mean, you have collaboration in iWork Suite, but if you want real collaboration, you have to go to Office and not the Google Office Suite. You have to go to actual Office,
right?
But still, I mean, these apps are great, and I love that we have something that we can use that works basically the same on our Macs, iPhones, and iPads. And I don't care how many improvements we see in PowerPoint, it is still not Keynote.
It's not Keynote. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I agree. Excel wins over numbers. Keynote wins over Microsoft PowerPoint. But I am glad to see iWork Suite because, like Jeff, I do like it too, and it's always good to see new improvements for that.
Yeah. Do you use the suite at all, Warren? iWork?
We use Office. We use Office.
Well, but personally, do you use it?
I can't legitimately tell you that the last time I used any type of Office product for personal use in a while. I do my resume when I was looking for a job, and that's it probably for the last 4 years. So I mean, it's
okay.
I'm not in there a lot. The only thing I could tell you is for whatever reason, since the dawn of time, iWork doesn't seem to update through the Mac App Store ever. Or it doesn't show you that it has updates. The only way I ever see I have the updates is either a news story or a setup. Clean my Mac, the updater finds it. It's kind of just a PSA. If you don't have the update, you actually have to search for Keynote or one of them.
Yeah, it's kind of hit and miss when it works.
The update icon never shows. So if you go back into the actual app, and then it will say update.
Yeah, I think even iMovie, Final Cut. Sometimes that shows up.
Very rarely do I see anything in the Mac App Store under the update badge.
For Apple,
iOS works all the time, but yeah.
But all right, these next two stories are actually some good news using iPhones and Apple Watches. The first story here, this was an Apple Insider, actually. Man recovers iPhone lost at the bottom of a river for 10 months.
Was a man at the bottom for 10 months? Or the watch?
The iPhone was
the
there.
watch. Oh, yeah.
This is the iPhone. UK man was reunited with his iPhone after 10 months at the bottom of a river, and it was still working when he got it back. Owani Davies dropped the iPhone into the River Wye near Cinderford, Gloucestershire in August of 2021, and at that time he was canoeing during a bachelor party. The story doesn't end there. No, later it doesn't end there though. In earlier June, someone had actually found the device while he was canoeing in the river. He took it home, dried it out, and posted images online in the attempt to track its owner because the photos did show up. And the owner just couldn't believe it that they found the device and it was working, and it still works to this day. So, and we know iPhones can withstand. It's an IP68 water resistant device, and is able to withstand up to 1.5 meters of fresh water for up to 30 minutes. This is kind of a bit more of extreme,
or 10 months.
Yeah,
or give
10
or
months,
take.
give or take 10 months. Yeah. What do you think, Jeff? I thought this was an interesting story.
I think it's a pretty cool story, and I love these stories about like my I was stupid trying to take photos from a small airplane, and my phone flew out the window.
Yeah,
and
my $1,200 iPhone.
But we went and found it in a field, and it still works. Or my phone was submerged in a river for 10 months, and someone found it, and it still works. So I love the stories. What I should have done before we started recording was look to see how many Android phone stories there are that are the same.
Yeah, I would venture.
And off the top of my head, I don't know of any.
People throw their Android phones in rivers and off planes on purpose. That's the thing.
Oh, right.
That's right.
They don't try to get them back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, my phone fell out of the boat. I've got to go get an iPhone now.
Oh.
Yeah. So anyhow, but my point, did I have a point? I did have a point. Is this a remarkable story because it's an iPhone and you just can't find any other phone that survives like this? Or is it a remarkable story because there was a smartphone that survived 10 months submerged in a river?
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.
Either way, I mean, holy crap, this is cool.
Don't you like these kind of stories, Warren?
Yeah, I mean, part of me says people need to be more careful with their stuff.
Don't be canoeing with your iPhone.
I mean, like of all the, how long I have the four of us had, phones, and how many of us like dropped it in a river or off an we don't.
Never.
Be more careful. But
well, to be fair, how much time do we spend outdoors in canoes, kayaks, and smaller planes?
This is true too. Yes, we're not the right demographic.
We're not the demographic.
I won't even swim with my Apple Watch.
I will swim with my Apple Watch. That's one thing I'll do. I've got my phone kind of wet. I've dropped, I've gotten it wet to the point where I got worried, and it was fine. The watch, I'll get wet out. I won't worry about the iPhone. I don't like to test these theories out. It still scares me.
Just like going on YouTube and will it blend?
Well, that will definitely blend. But I mean, I'm assuming if this guy's phone, lasted 10 months in the bottom of a lake, I mean, his phone's no special than anybody else's. I'm assuming all of our phones will do the same thing if we left it in a lake for 10 months.
Oh, no, it's nothing special.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't you like these stories, Andrew? I always like these kind of stories.
I think it's really cool for kind of the reasons that you mentioned earlier. In when they're testing these phones in laboratory conditions, perfect conditions, right? They say, IP68 rating, it can last underwater for maybe 30 meters, 90 meters, somewhere around that. But then we're always surprised by stories like this where, oh, wait, it actually lasted far longer than I thought it would. And what Apple said it would, where it's, 10 months later and it still works perfectly. So I think that just gives us a kind of like cool relationship with this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you go on the other side of things, something that helps you, calling for help. A swimmer, this next story, a swimmer was stuck in the frigid Columbia River and uses the Apple Watch to call for help. A woman who became stuck while swimming in the frigid Columbia River used her Apple Watch to call emergency services, which quickly came to her rescue. The woman was swimming in the Columbia River, which is absolutely beautiful. I know it's a beautiful place. I probably would have loved being there. It's in June. It was around June 15th as we record this, in Dallas, Oregon, and where her foot got caught under rocks at the river's bottom. That's according to the report. And because of the continual rains in the area, the police said that the river was extremely high. So the water temperature was also about 56 degrees. Ooh, that is cold. So again,
frigid.
That was frigid. Yes.
Yeah,
that's really cold. 56 degrees.
Very cold.
That's fracking cold.
It's cold.
Yeah.
But frigid might be a little bit colder than that. But yeah. Okay.
Tell you what, Warren.
Yeah,
strip down your skivvies and hop in that water. You tell me how frigid it isn't.
It's like here in Lake Michigan. You go swimming here now, and it's been 90 plus degrees here. People are going in. Oh, it's 60 degrees. It's less than 60 degrees. Like, yeah, it might be really hot and humid, but you're going to freeze quick and going to that. What do you think, Andrew? I think the Apple Watch. I read so many of these stories. I love hearing them, and it gives even more reason I'm so thrilled I have an Apple Watch. Really.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like the iPhone story, these devices may be more waterproof than we think. And I've actually started wearing my Apple Watch more lately because I bought the Series 7 and I used it for a few months and then I kind of dropped off and put it in a drawer. Lately, for the past month or so, I've been wearing it again and I do really like it. I'm glad I have this.
Wear it every day.
The one thing we were talking about the phone, underwater, but the watch still, I wear it in a pool, but it's still not a great experience, I don't think, in the water for two reasons. It's when you put it in water mode, which you're supposed to do when you go in the water, it kind of kills the screen. And they do that because they lock the screen so you don't. I guess the water's a conductor, and if the water goes on, right, the water goes on the screen, it doesn't register correctly. But it's still a pain in the butt because when you're in the pool and you want to use it as a watch, and you want to control music, things like that, it's a pain in the butt, and this happens a lot. So I mean, and also the fact that you have to like plow water out of it, every time you swim. Seems like almost like a throwback concept at this point, where Apple could probably figure out a way to not have to do that either. So I'm hoping maybe the next gen watches will be more waterproof and functional going forward in the water. Like this, I mean, if this woman put her watch in the wet mood, and she was stuck under a rock, she might have had to like actually, turn the crown enough to unlock it, then go into the screen and do whatever she needs to do. Or I don't know if it called I don't know how it actually got it. So she might have held down a button for SOS or whatever like that. But but yeah, it's good, but it needs a little bit more work in the water, I think, to be more fun.
What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah. I think this is awesome. And Warren, sure, Apple can always work to improve the features and the way they work in different conditions. So I hope they do. I love these stories about how technology like this is saving people's lives, and so this is no secret. It's a story that that's come up in conversations before. I mean, my Apple Watch was instrumental in helping figure out that I was having an allergy reaction at one point when I had unintentionally eaten dairy, and so the condensed version is, I became very delirious and was not aware that I was having a problem. But through the data that my watch had, and being on the phone with someone who knew how I should be reacting to just the world in general, could tell something wrong, was able to put the pieces together and figure out that I was having a very severe allergic reaction, and was able to address that. And here we are.
And I think we've all sold everybody on Apple Watches. If you haven't already bought one, I would hope most who listen to this show have Apple Watches. So
we have somebody in the Back to the Future group who actually got an email from Tim. The watch saved him from it was a stroke or a heart or something. I can find it later, but so there's personal stories of people actually saying it saved their life.
All right, last story this week. This is under the category of Chuck Joyner. We're talking about frivolous lawsuits. T-Mobile is being sued by AT&T and Verizon customers for increased prices. In a surprise turn of events, it looks like a group of AT&T and Verizon customers have decided to sue T-Mobile. I can't stop laughing. The group believes that this continued increase of prices was brought about by their carriers as an impact by T-Mobile's Sprint acquisition in 2020. This was reported as this group is being seeing a declaratory relief as well as financial compensation brought by the precipitous decline in competition. And of course, it actually had to be in Illinois, in my home state. The class was it aims
at Florida.
Florida. It aims to represent that all persons entitled who paid for a Verizon or AT&T mobile wireless plan on or after April 1st, 2020. Not sure what's going to happen with this lawsuit, but I think this is absolutely crazy. Don't you think, Jeff?
I can tell you it's going to happen with this lawsuit. It's going to get dismissed. Okay, so this, to me, and I haven't done a lot of research, so keep that in mind. This to me sounds like just another law firm that went out hunting for people to be plaintiffs in a case they cooked up.
Class action.
And I mean, this it does not make sense to me. It's if you're upset about the pricing, you don't sue other companies because you don't like what your service provider's charging you. You leave and go to a different company that charges you better. Exactly. And then that first company, as they see they're losing customers over pricing, now has to be more competitive, assuming the system works the way it's supposed to. To me, this is an absolute ridiculous, frivolous case.
Absolutely. What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, it's so confusing.
Exactly.
I don't like what AT&T is charging me, so I'm going to sue T-Mobile.
Right.
That's right. Crazy stuff. And Warren, I know you like this too.
Yeah, I don't I don't get it either. I guess we could start talking about what is considered a monopoly at this point, right? So like
right.
If T-Mobile becomes considered a monopoly because they, for whatever reason, then maybe, I don't know. But I like T-Mobile, and
I do as well.
We talked about it last week. They announced like 5G internet overseas, which is awesome, and free Wi-Fi on some more planes. So just every couple weeks we get a nice.
They keep adding new stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I like it's great. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the topics for this week. Beta, iOS 15.5 Beta 3 is still out there, and it's still being beta tested for some reason. I'm surprised that Apple hasn't released that yet to the people who are not brave enough to go on to iOS 16, which we'll talk about in a moment. So not much else to say about that other than I would assume that Apple's going to release this at some point within the next week or two. It's been, I think it's been a week since Beta 3 came out, so maybe next week. Who knows? But iOS 16 had a big update this week. Beta 2 was released about yesterday as we record this. And a lot of great stuff that's been added to it. Warren, Mr. Beta Tester yourself, what do you see or have you liked anything in iOS 16 yet on the iPhone?
It's a lot better, actually. It's a lot better than last week's or 2 weeks ago. Snappier, quicker things. You're starting to get an idea of what they're trying to do with the springboard motion. Is a lot. You could actually start seeing some of the transition effects that they're doing. That's new, which is really kind of cool. Nothing crashes. I had Teams not working for 2 weeks, which kind of sucked for work because I needed it. It works as of yesterday with the new update, so that's good. I played with a couple of the new features is not something you really play with that much, but the new wallpaper I saw.
The wallpaper customization and the lock screen photo wallpaper.
Yeah, a little bit more with that. But yeah, it's we play this game every year. I'm going to be so happy. And then I'm like, it's getting great. It's getting great. And then the beta 4 will be like, just like a poop revert, like Apple just forgot how to like implement mail. They'll release something. All of a sudden mail doesn't work. I have to download a third party mail program for a couple weeks, but so far so good.
Yeah. A couple notable things, as Warren mentioned, wallpapers. I don't have to talk too much about that right now. Backups over LTE. You now can do you can back up your device over an LTE cellular connection with data.
You could do that before, but maybe not.
They're now introduced the support for 5G. They didn't have that before.
Okay.
So depending on your carrier, of course, and your plan. The Apple Cache and Apple Card send and request interface has been changed, so that's always going to be changed. One thing I like here is the fact that screenshots now have a save to quick note option when saving a screenshot, which joins the save to photos and save to files and delete screenshot option. So those of us who take lots of screenshots, which I know we all do, I think is a nice notable thing that was added there. The WatchOS 9. Did you see anything? We're in beta 2 of that. I don't know. Again, WatchOS doesn't seem to have a lot of too exciting things.
The only thing I mentioned it in Facebook was we were talking about the water ejection. So for 7 iOSs or WatchOSs, you ejected the water by spinning the crown. All of a sudden now you got to hold down a button. The spinning crown doesn't do anything. So try it if you have the beta. But I went swimming. I put in water mode and I'm like standing there. I'm spinning my watch and my watch is not doing anything. I'm like, oh, great. The beta, locked my watch up. I actually read the screen because the graphic is exactly the same as it is before. And it said hold down. It's either a crown or the other button for 5 seconds to eject the water. I'm like, okay. Well,
that's weird.
Literally, that's the only change I've seen since WatchOS probably 6.
Yeah. So one thing I did see that they mentioned in WatchOS 9 for those of you who still have the Series 4 and Series 5 is it will recalibrate the maximum battery capacity with this. They did mention that was found according to the release notes in WatchOS 9. It'll result in a more accurate estimate for maximum battery capacity on those 2 older model watches. So that's good to see.
That's good.
And the iOS, Apple did confirm that iPad will no longer be supported as a home hub in iOS 16, which is kind of sad. I don't know. Did you ever use it as a home hub, your iPad, Jeff?
Experimentally.
Okay.
And what I found was that it was very limited because you can't have as many devices and it didn't handle remote stuff correctly. And it always felt to me like iPad as a HomeKit bridge was I guess a temporary feature that was there to give people that wanted to get into HomeKit but didn't already have an Apple TV an easy way to get into the ecosystem.
Right.
And, because if you want to get adoption, you use the Netflix philosophy. You need to be everywhere. So give people the bridge functionality built into an iPad, and now you have more options. So the fact that it's going away now is fine, I think. And honestly, I thought it had already gone away.
Yeah, I didn't hear too much about it. There's other means of being able to manage your home. One thing also was noted as on iOS 16 as well as macOS Ventura that combating email spoofing with support for verified brand logos in the Mail app. Both iOS 16 and macOS Ventura will add support for these brand indicators, which is like a message identification or BIMI standard in the Mail app, helping users easily verify authenticated emails sent by brands, displaying the brand's logo along with the email's header. I have a link in show notes here on Mac Rumors here, the example of a Chase Bank showing their logo and seeing whether or not it's certified or not. It actually says in the header they're digitally certified. So we're really starting to see some pretty good enhancements with the Mail app. Long overdue. Don't you think, Andrew? This is long overdue with improving it in Mail.
Yeah, I personally, I wasn't really too impressed with the Mail updates that they announced. These just seems like these are basic features that Apple's kind of catching up towards.
I said long overdue.
But I was interested in the kind of the new search capabilities that they showed off. So, I mean, there's still some improvements.
Yep. Did you have anything to add, Warren?
I mean, if the verified logo thing, I mean, that's something I've never seen before. So if Apple is doing this and spearheading this and it works and it works and the word gets out, this will actually help, especially elderly people with spoofing and phishing, because that's something easy for people to learn and teach somebody rather. Right now, as IT people, what do we have to do? We have to say, open up the from address, click on that and look at the actual email address. And does it say, from chase.com, or does it say from chase blah, blah, blah.com, whatever. But if this works, this is a game changer for that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
For scammers and targeting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this works, Warren, if the companies actually go through the process to have the specific graphics they're using in these situations tagged so that they show up as legit.
But banks, financial institutions, definitely, if they, if they see the value in customers knowing that the email is definitely them, and if a bank, if an elderly person goes into Wells Fargo and says, I got this email and I don't know if it's true, and down 5 years from now, 3 years from now, Wells Fargo said, if it doesn't have this logo on that phone on your email, then don't open it and it's not from us. That would be that's the goal, right? To stop that kind of thing. I mean, you just got to worry about whether this is just going to be used for like marketing, like Nike and things like that. But the real value would be to prevent people from opening emails that are spoofed.
Using it for marketing, at least initially, might not be a bad thing, because marketing is a great way to raise visibility and awareness about this. Absolutely. So that as more banks and other financial institution, healthcare systems get on board, people are already familiar with these alerts.
No, honey, that's not the Playboy logo you're looking at. I don't know why I got that email.
That's right. Couple other things on that are of note that we're finding in iOS 16. Apple's junk message reporting now covers SMS for select U.S. carriers in iOS 16. It's a built-in report junk feature. The Messages app is now covering SMS and MMS messages, allowing spam messages to be reported to select carriers in the U.S. Let's see what carriers do this. There's no note of as far as who is going to do that, but oh my gosh, that'd be so much better. I'm so sick of these gosh darn spammers sending these messages to my phone. I don't know about you guys. It's been bad lately.
I swiped on one of my message threads and it said, do you want to mark it as junk or spam? And I got confused. Is this maybe...
So this is it?
This is it? Okay.
So T-Mobile must have it.
So, yeah, but I did it on a message that I just wanted to delete and not report. So now I don't know if they're ever going to... Anyways, is there a way to undo it?
No way to undo it. At least that's not mentioned anyway. And then last thing, I know we were pretty excited about this new thing they added in messages, that you're able to edit messages and unsend messages in iMessage. But it was originally they were saying it wasn't going to be backwards compatible, but actually it's going to be. It's now you're going to allow what's going to end up happening is someone who doesn't have iOS 16 will receive a new version of the message labeled as edited for. So you can edit it, but an old version obviously isn't going to remove what you changed. But we'll know that, as we all know, adoption rate on iOS is pretty high as it is when it comes out. So I don't think we have to worry.
Well, Dave, the other place this becomes really useful is if you send a message to someone on an Android phone and then edit your message, they'll see that you have an edit as well.
Oh, okay. So that's good. Good things.
Yeah. So it's really good.
So moving on to other topics. Well, actually, we're going to stay on iOS 16 a little bit here. Andrew had some great articles he's written up for the last couple of weeks, and I thought, well, this would be a great opportunity with you being on the show here to highlight some of the great things you've talked about over there at Apple Insider. And the first one is about iOS 16. You wrote a really cool article about the 6 features that users won't see in iOS 16 this fall. What inspired you to write this one, and what did you get out of it? I know there are some things, especially pay later, which has been kind of debated, and others.
I think there are a lot of great features coming in these new updates, but there are some features that I kind of pointed out that we won't see at the 16.0 launch. But I wanted to point out that I think this is good, right? Because, for example, there's this new app that Apple is releasing called Freeform. It's their own take on a digital whiteboarding app. They did say it's in a beta version, but it's not even in the developer betas.
No, I don't think so.
It's still internal, but I think that's good. Like that gives them more time to work on it to, iron out all those bugs and whatever. So,
and live activities. That was another one that was questionable. I knew that wasn't going to be coming out. And we already just talked about CarPlay with the dashboard, of course.
Live activities is cool. So that is going to be a new feature. Part of the big upgrades for the home screen, the lock screen. And so live activities, it's going to be an API Apple is rolling out. Developers can tap into it, and it will let certain apps like sports apps, they can display this kind of special widget or notification on the lock screen that stays there. It's pinned, and you can see live updates of, for example, sports scores in real time. So that's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, absolutely. And then share play in the game center. You've got to do that because you have all the gamers who love to watch, or people who like to watch on Twitch, especially watching people play games. And these gamers make some serious money doing it too. I tell you, here's a good opportunity now in using Game Center on an iPhone or an iPad using share play, so you can share it.
Yeah, I think gameplay has a lot of potential, and SharePlay is just the first step. Like you said, there are other platforms like Twitch. Apple is late in this aspect of the game, and so SharePlay, sharing what you're playing with on screen with other people, that's just the first step, I think.
Yeah,
Jeff, I think Apple's making a mistake on not having SharePlay when iOS 16 drops.
Yeah,
Apple has never had a good reputation with gamers and the gaming industry, and Apple keeps trying to tell both that they're very serious about gaming, and a good way I think to do that with iOS 16 would have been to make sure that SharePlay Game Center is available on launch day.
Yeah. Anything you want to add, Warren?
No, I'm looking at the article Andrew wrote. It's really good, really good. The only thing I'll add is, last beta I bought, as you all know, I bought an iPad Pro because I was waiting for continuity. I think it was for the last time. It was and it didn't get released until even after the OS came out, right? It took a while to come out even after the final release was out.
Mm-hmm.
So, I told myself this year I was going to not do that, but, kind of looking over, there's not looking over, there's not a lot of things that, right. So the big thing for iOS is obviously, for the M1, what's it called?
Stage Manager.
Stage Manager.
Yeah. So that's a big thing for it. So I'm I'm fighting with myself, obviously, whether to do it or not, because they actually released it on the first beta.
The fight will win.
Warren, I'm looking forward to hearing about your new iPad next week.
Exactly.
It's so bad, and it's going to be the kind of thing where I'll play with it once or twice. I'm like, yeah, this is really cool, and I'll never use it again. Kind of like what I did with to be honest with you, I do use continuity a lot, even on my iPad Mini. I really like it. So I do use that. It is awesome. I can't see myself using Stage Manager that much, to be honest with you, on an iPad. But
get back to us when it's out, and we'll compare notes.
Yep.
The next story, you actually wrote this about a couple days ago, as we record this. Apple's relationship with web apps will improve in 2023. the web push, that's always been a big thing going on with notifications from web apps. And even at the beginning of, as you said, at the beginning of iPhone's creation, Steve Jobs was against allowing third-party apps on the device. Boy, have we come a long way since then, huh?
Yeah, so in my article, I did get a little bit into the history to try to give readers, a like catching up to speed, right?
Yeah, that was great.
Apple has done both positive things for web apps, like, Steve Jobs in the early days, iOS 8, as I pointed out, they pioneered HTML5. They really pushed that kind of in their effort to kill Adobe Flash, but that's still good for web apps, right?
Those days of Steve Jobs going all over, you'll never see Flash on any of our devices.
Mm-hmm. He was right.
He was right. And now it's dawn.
Yeah.
Can I take us down a rabbit hole for a second?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
During those battles, I was on a podcast where there was someone from Adobe that was involved in the Flash development for iOS, and they were totally bagging on Apple and saying, we've got this working right now. We've got this on our devices. It works perfectly. We can't believe they won't let us do it.
He's probably right. I mean, I think they could have I know for sure that they could have gotten Flash to work well on anything if they really continued on, but
they could have gotten it to work. Well, what ended up happening was I said, okay, if this is running as well as you say, I will sacrifice my iPhone right now. You let me put your whatever Flash you have for iOS on my iPhone and play with it. And then I will come on back on the podcast and I will tell people how awesome this is and show them firsthand how great this is. Let me put this on my iPhone and you can prove that what you're saying is true. Crickets. Never. I mean, the subject was suddenly changed, and I
don't even remember playing anything on Flash. I can't even remember playing.
They were so bad.
Right? Yeah, I'm sure we did. I remember what Andrew wrote about was the web apps. I remember before the App Store, that's all we had, right? So we went into Safari and went to these websites that kind of did things, but there were a few that I kind of remember that were good, and most of it was junk.
And of course, Apple banning third-party browser engines, and that was always such a big complaint because you were stuck with Safari, and they would not, if you had a browser, being Chrome or Firefox or something else, it always it was basically built on Safari. So you basically had Safari with something in the front end,
almost like a skin on Safari.
A skin, right?
Yeah, it still is, isn't it? Like kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that hasn't changed. It's still. Yeah. I thought
it's all still WebKit.
It's all based on Safari's backend, and it's just kind of a front end for it.
Right. So anything else that's notable we didn't cover about web apps? I think this is. I agree with you. There's a lot of things like web push and others coming next year. It's going to continue to progress.
Yeah, I think it's nice. That's a good step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then one other one that I saved it for here because I thought I was very excited is the fact that Apple's could kill the captchas with private access tokens.
Please do it.
When I saw you wrote this, Andrew, I said, "This is I can't wait till this happens."
Right,
the worst things in the world.
I can't stand them. They're awful.
Yeah, it is good news. And so, just to summarize. So Apple's working with a bunch of other companies, including Google and Microsoft, to develop a standard to replace passwords with something that at least Apple calls passkeys. Mm-hmm. And it will just work with your biometric data, Touch ID and Face ID. There's one Apple engineer that said it will be a lot faster for people to log in. Mm-hmm. And so this will work across platforms, and they say it could kill the Captcha. There is some kind of background authentication mode that browsers do that, you don't have to do it anymore. Apple just or not only Apple, but other browser vendors, it just works automatically.
Yeah, no, this is I like your diagrams you have on here, just showing how it works and giving good summary, and then the privacy pass protocol. And now with passkeys coming, I think that's going to be even better with passwords. And then definitely, you mentioned the technologies like iCloud Private Relay, hide my email, and app tracking transparency add a huge bonus to Apple's users with privacy. That's for sure. But yeah, if those captchas, and the other one is those pictures that Google uses. Oh,
what I was going to say to Andrew and you guys is, instead of doing all this invention of getting rid of captchas, can't they just make the text legible and the pictures easier to not miss things?
Where's the bicycles? And then you look there's a piece of the bicycle in one of those squares that you click, right?
The captures wouldn't be that bad, but you literally can't read. They're all squiggly. Make them human readable, and maybe it won't be as bad. But I consider myself sort of computer technical savvy, and I still fail a few of them here and there. So
yeah, we've been meaning to talk to you about that.
That's right. So no, great stories.
I'm not a robot, by the way.
Yeah, we kind of wonder sometimes. I'm kidding. Those are some great stories, Andrew. We appreciate you giving us some extra insights on that. And
thanks.
Yeah, and I have a couple apps this week, and I kind of put Jeff on the spot here because I saw you recommend this app to somebody on Twitter. I thought, how fitting, you could tell us about Linny Sketch on the iPad.
See, the great thing was when you said you're putting me on the spot because I recommended something, I wasn't sure which app you're going to be talking about. Okay, so yes, someone asked me on Twitter what I'd recommend as a good drawing and sketching app for iPad with Apple Pencil, and I didn't have to think about it. My response was Linea Sketch, and if you are looking for an app, by the way, they don't sponsor me in any way. This is just me wanting the right app to do what I need. Linea Sketch is great because it's easy to use. The interface is pretty straightforward. You have basic things you need to be able to draw and sketch and create some pretty sophisticated art without having so many features that it becomes confusing or frustrating. And they have a companion app that you put on your Mac, if you're so inclined, so that you can grab your Linea content from your iPhone or iPad and just pull it directly over to your Mac. And you can even have it import directly into, say, like Photoshop or Affinity Photo. And work with the content natively in those other apps. So when you see drawings that I've done that are obviously not on paper, they're done in Linea Sketch. And I don't even remember how much it costs, and I don't care, because whatever it costs, it's worth it. If it's a subscription and you're like, I don't like subscriptions, shut up and give them your money.
It's free with in-app purchase. You can buy a monthly subscription for 99 cents. That's a bargain. $9.99 if you want a yearly subscription, or you can just go full out and do a full-time purchase for $29.99. Probably worth every penny.
Oh my God, it is worth absolutely every penny.
I think you've got me sold here.
It's a wonderful app. I really like it.
And they do say it's offered for the iPhone as well. How would you utilize it on the iPhone?
The iPhone app is a limited version.
Okay.
And so it has not limited, like we hobbled this and screw you, but like they get that it's a smaller interface. You can't use an Apple Pencil with it. And so they've created a version that takes into account the limitations that you'll have when using it on an iPhone. So it's still a usable app, but I certainly wouldn't use it on my iPhone as my primary drawing and sketching interface. That's much better suited for an iPad. Yeah. And and with solid Apple Pencil support on the iPad Mini, I mean, you could even use it there.
And this is by the Icon Factory, which is a great company.
Yeah, yes, they make great stuff.
They make great stuff. So, thank you for doing that. Appreciate that.
Oh, sure.
And I thought I'd wrap up with this was actually a story in 9 to 5 Mac, but there is a new app that's out there that you can watch YouTube videos on your Apple Watch. Now, you can ask yourself, why would you want to watch a YouTube video on your Apple Watch? It's an app called WatchTube. Obviously, the Apple Watch lets you do a lot of things, but what it basically will do is it's an Apple Watch only app. So you install it, of course, on the iPhone, and then it pushes right to the Apple Watch. But it does allow you to search for videos and be able to look at them on your Apple Watch. And it does work as intended. I started playing with it, and it's not very complicated. I know. Would you want to watch a YouTube video on your watch?
Yes, of course.
I thought it'd be cool. Yeah.
Okay. Now
it's Dick Tracy, right?
You're looking at me like, oh yeah, Jeff, right? Okay. Have you ever been working on something on your car, and then you're like, crap? How do I get at this one train? How do I get to this one thing so I can pop out the light bulb or whatever it is?
Yeah.
If you could watch it on your watch right there.
Yeah.
And seriously, that was my first thought when I heard about this app was all the stupid videos that I need to look at. And I'm trying to prop my iPhone up in some janky place in my car while I do the thing myself. And I could just have it on my wrist and be like, okay, I'm doing the thing and I'm watching it. I actually see value in this, as crazy as that sounds.
No, I know, Warren, go ahead. You can give your opinion on this. I know you don't want to do it.
Warren's opinion is probably don't fix your car yourself. Take it to the dealer.
Yeah, but my opinion is definitely not wanting to watch a YouTube video on my watch. I don't think. First of all, you would need headphones, right? Because you can't. There's no speaker. I'm guessing.
Yeah, there is.
There's no speaker. I mean, no. There's no speaker on the
yours
watch.
is filled with water.
That's right.
There's no speaker on the watch that plays that will do this. I don't think. I think it just makes beeps and bops. So
no. The speaker on the Apple Watch is loud.
Are you serious? It will play a YouTube video.
Totally. Have you ever played with walkie-talkie on an Apple Watch?
Right.
When Apple introduced that feature.
That feature no one uses anymore.
Once when Apple first introduced the feature, I played with it.
Okay.
Once.
And it worked. And you're able to talk to someone.
Yeah.
And you could hear what they were saying.
So you're saying so why can't I listen to a podcast from my watch? Which is what I really want to do.
That would be a software limitation.
Right. So you're saying I could watch a YouTube video through this app, and
because this app was designed to do it.
Right, but I totally really do want to watch. I listen to a podcast through the speaker of my watch, and there's no way to do it. So that doesn't make sense. But go for it.
Well, we need a podcast app.
Apple making a decision to not let the podcast app play through the speaker.
Okay. And guess what? This app is absolutely free. So, what do you think, Andrew?
Can I make a podcast app that will play a podcast? Does Overcast let you play it through the speaker?
There is a Apple Watch only app. I forgot the name of it, but I've recommended it before. But again, it's limitation to the way that the app was written. So with something like this, I would not be at all surprised somebody might be thinking about something like the podcast app if you want to use it.
Makes sense to me.
Andrew, you get the final word here. What do you think of this app?
I would never. I don't think I would ever use it. I would never want to watch an Apple or in a video on my Apple Watch. But at the same time, I think it's like I've said this about everything tonight, I think, but I do think it's cool. I'm always impressed by the things that developers can turn our devices into.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've brought this show to a close for this week and hope you enjoyed it. But let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We would really appreciate it. You also can become a Patreon on Patreon by going to the show's site, which is patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so you're notified when we are live streaming, which is on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, and at our YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/DaveG65, where you can also watch past shows that we've recorded live as well as listen to past shows. You can go to our In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the articles and topics we discuss are flipped onto that magazine. The link is in our show notes. You can subscribe to our show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, and many others. But better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg, and you can find me on Twitter at DaveG65. Andrew Orr, thank you so much for being here. I had what a blast, and I'm so glad you came on. And where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So you can find me on Twitter. My username is @AndrewOrNot. And then some of my writing you can find now at appleinsider.com, where I'm trying to get out all the deep thoughts I have about Apple.
I have a link in the show notes to every article you've written so far at Apple Insider. So I'm really promoting you this week, Andrew. So
thank you very much.
So you can go back and read some of his great stuff. It was a long time. I saw you had written something a long time ago, and then you just got the gig now. So so it's good stuff. So thanks for being here. Jeff Gamet, thank you as always for being here. We appreciate it. Where can people find you?
Well, thanks for having me back. It's always a blast. And
Yes.
people can find me on Twitter and Instagram. JGamet on both. YouTube.com/JGamet for my occasional videos. And most Tuesdays on Mac Voices Live. And hold on. My office manager's trying to help.
I think your office manager opened a whiteboard and threw me off here.
That was me. I'm playing. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure my cat was involved in part of that as well. Anyhow, what did she do? Like I have literally lost all the controls in the Zoom window.
I got rid of it.
Thank you. And all my controls are back. Anyhow, so yeah, big show on Thursdays, Mac show on Fridays, here with you on most Thursdays, and the Context Machine with Brian Trafford.
Yes. Go listen to Context Machine. It's always a blast to listen to that one. And then Warren Sklar, thank you for being here. Where can people find you?
My office manager fell asleep on the job. Back there.
Yeah, mine was trying to collaborate with Warren.
She just heard you.
Yeah, you fell asleep on the job, didn't you, girl? Yeah, you did.
She's so embarrassed.
You're so embarrassed. Here, mostly where you are, but not everywhere you guys are. So, with Dave on Thursdays here, Tuesdays, sometime with Chuck. Back to the Future webpage on Facebook. And thanks, Andrew. It's good to see you. Yeah, we don't get to see
thank you
as much. Yeah, it's good to see you. Jeff,
all right.
You know I love you. I don't have to say it.
I love you too, Warren.
Lots of love here. And thank you for listening. We really appreciate it because we hope you enjoyed the show. And we'll talk again soon.